Hello again. This is another one of our little videos. This time we're going to be looking at how to do referencing. I get so many students, and actually academic staff, telling me how difficult they find referencing or how much of a bug it is. And to be honest with you, it's one of the simplest things we ask you to do as students. If we cut out all the sort of nonsense around the Harvard reference system, all that sort of stuff about commas and dots and full stops and what have you, at the heart of it, all we're asking you to do is to acknowledge where you've got the learning from, where you've got the information from. It's as simple as that. And there are only 3 ways that we usually use that in the text. And I'm going to try and show you that. What I've done is I've grabbed the textbook. This is a book on corporate finance by Watson and Head. Good book if you're into finance. Doesn't matter if you're into finance, it's still relevant for referencing. And I've taken a section from it just so that we've got some help. Now, I don't think you're going to be able to read this. I don't think my camera skills are that good. But I've taken a section from it. So let's just say a student wanted to talk about incremental working capital of all things, a very exciting topic. There's a sentence here that explains to us, as activity levels rise as a result of investment in fixed assets, levels of stock and raw materials, finished goods and debtors will also increase, financed in part by an increase in trade creditors. So let's just assume we've got a student that wants to talk about incremental working capital and explain that as part of their essay or their report. And they've referred to this text. And what we're going to try and do now is to find a way of you saying that in your writing, but in a way that it can't be accused of plagiarism. Obviously, if you start to copy and paste material, you are plagiarising unless you acknowledge it correctly. It is that simple. There should be no confusion over it. You do not use somebody else's words without an appropriate acknowledgement. But it's a really straightforward thing to do. So first of all, let's just say we're going to do exactly that. I'm going to take their exact words and use them in my report. Now, because possibly I can't put it better than they've put it themselves. All I do there is I could do something like, for example, the purpose of incremental working capital is that, and then I start with my direct quotation. So what I would do from this point forwards, I won't do it, you can notice how appallingly bad my handwriting is. From this point forwards, I am writing exactly what is written in the text. As an activity, so on, there. It is exactly what the authors have written. I have used their words to a T. I am making no attempt to reword it. I'm using their words, but you notice I'm using them in speech marks to identify these are not my words. At the end of that, then, I simply place a parenthesis, a bracket, and what I do here is use the author's surnames, Watson and Head, as you can see on the text. I use their surnames to identify that is the source, never the first names, always the surnames. So it would be Watson and Head, and then the year it was published. And of course you get that from a textbook in the opening couple of leaves. And this, for example, here, we see that it's 2001. It's an older book. So Watson and Head, 2001. Now, there's a little bit of a stylistic thing here. Some referencing systems require you to put the page number for a direct quotation, only some don't. We would normally do that if we were to do that by, again, a simple parenthesis with P85, page 85 from where it's from. Okay, sometimes that might appear there. Again, your university will talk about its specific style. The important thing is the guts of this idea, and that is you place their words in speech marks, and then you put their surnames and the year it was published at the end. It will always be that in some way. And ultimately, that's what we worry about. That stops you being accused of plagiarism. You may make a mistake with referencing, but you won't be a plagiarist, and that's really, really important, because a plagiarist is a liar, basically. Okay, so we need to get that right. So, some sort of speech marks, their direct words, Watson and Head 2001. If it was a website, don't go putting the ugly website address. What you would do there, perhaps it was the British Broadcasting Corporation, BBC website. It would be BBC 2014, say, for example. The web address, all of the full details, the author's initials, all that stuff comes at the end of the report in the reference list. Here we just use surname or organisation name, okay? Never anything else, just surname or organisation name. Okay, so that's a direct quote, that's me using their words. As a bit of a tip, try and avoid more than one sentence at a time, and certainly try to avoid more than 1 or 2 of those per page. It's just aesthetics, there's no rules about this, but really try to avoid paragraph after paragraph of other people's words, because that's not analysis, that's somebody else's words, okay? So use it sparingly. Personally, I use it very, very rarely. So, we'll forget that one for a second. Let's try it a different way. Well, let's try now using our own words to interpret theirs, okay? So they were talking about as activity levels rise as a result of investment in assets, levels of stocks and raw materials, finished goods and debtors will also increase. In other words, as a company goes, so will its need for working capital. So we could just write that. As a company grows, so does its need for working capital. Okay, so what I've done there is I've been inspired by them, I've learned from them, okay, that's what they've told me, but in different words. What I do now is at the end, I just do my Watson and Head 2001 again, and that's it. And what I'm doing is I'm acknowledging, look, this just didn't come out of my head, it wasn't the bloke down the pub that told me, this came from the text of Watson and Head, well-respected authors, and we can be pretty certain that as a company grows, so does its need for working capital. Okay, so I'm acknowledging where I got the learning from. So, one style, a direct quotation. Second style, you put it on the end as parenthesis. Now, what I would say to students here is, when it's in brackets, you wouldn't read it out. So if I was reading this to you, I wouldn't read out the Watson and Head bit, okay? So you would just hear the first part of the sentence, if I was just reading it out. The third style, and there is only three, the third style basically is to drag their name into the argument. So what we do this time, this is a little bit, you've probably done this as children, I certainly did. When you say, my mum said, or my dad said, what you're doing is you're bringing their name in as an authority. That's an aesthetic stuff. So what we do here is Watson and Head 2001. Now you notice, importantly this time, the 2001 is the bit in parentheses, in brackets, is the 2001. Because the Watson and Head would be spoken. So it's Watson and Head, suggest that as a company grows, so too does its need for working capital. Appallingly bad handwriting, but I am a doctor, and doctors always have bad handwriting. Okay, so as a company grows, so do. But you can see what we're doing here now. But if I read this out, Watson and Head suggest that as a company grows, so does its need for working capital. So we can see here that the author's name's being drawn into the conversation, drawn into the argument, drawn into the discussion. So that's it. 3 things that you can do. The first, speech marks with the author's surnames and the year it was published. That will prevent you being accused of plagiarism, but do be careful and don't overuse that approach. The second and third approaches that we've used are where we've put it into our own words. And please, when we say put it into our own words, it's not just change every 5th word that the authors have used. It really is rephrasing it in your own words. We've seen 2 ways of doing that. One is that at the end of the sentence, you put the authors and the year of publication. Notice it's at the end of the sentence. The full stop comes after the last bracket. It doesn't come before it. It is part of the sentence, but it is at the end of the sentence. The other approach, the one we've just done, Watson and Head, 2001, suggests that as a company grows, so it's working capital. You bring it in. That's it. Those are the only 3 things we ask you to do. So when you write a piece of work for us, all we ask you to do is to acknowledge the source and acknowledge the authors. And by the way, of course, in any sort of academic work, we'd look for you to be using several authors to be well read. And of course, just rules of thumb, and they are really crude rules of thumb. You want to be looking at about 10 or 15 references for 2,500 words, but then that is a really approximate rule of thumb. I would get in trouble for that. So there's our referencing in the text. The next bit is we need a reference list at the end. Again, you need to refer to your own university. You seem to be looking for the board rubber. We need to refer to your own university for this part. However, it always follows something like this. It's always of this style, which is author, year, title, place, publisher. Okay? Author, year, title, place, publisher. Now, in our case, it would be Watson and Head, 2001, I've forgotten the title, 2001 Corporate Finance Principles and Practice, and it was published in London by Prentice Hall. London, Prentice Hall. Okay? So Watson and Head, we put the initials this time, Watson D, Head A, 2001, Corporate Finance Principles and Practice, London and Prentice Hall. If it's a journal, well, let's just bring that one down, because if it's a journal, then surely author, well, that's the same. It's still going to have an author, still going to have a year. The title of the paper will still exist. There'll be a title. Okay, but then it will be published in a certain place, and that place, of course, is if you like, is a journal. So I'm being a bit loose here, but then it's the name of the journal. And then it will usually be something like volume, whatever, and number, whatever, and page, whatever. Okay? But you see that the theory remains the same. Author, author, year, year, title of the book, title of the journal, paper. Not the journal paper. Place and publisher, well, that's the journal. And then, of course, the volume and the number and the page in the journal. If it's a website, again, same problem or same solution. Author, year, title of the web page. Web pages always have some sort of title. And then, now, different institutions will do this in slightly different ways. Some like to write here at this point, sourced from, downloaded from, something along those lines, okay? But basically, after the title comes your World Wide Web bit, with all the messiness, and then somewhere will be the date that it was downloaded, okay? Now, again, your own institution may have a different rule as to which way around these goes. But what I'm trying to get across to you is, it's straightforward in so much as it's always author, year, title, location. Author, year, title, location. Author, year, title, location. It's just that simple pattern. And please, 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 as students, focus on avoiding plagiarism. Focus on the quality of your work, really, the quality of your own writing. The technical aspects, the commas, the full stops and bits and pieces like that, do need to be correct, but you'll see that your institution will have its own style guide. Look at it, take time to read it, but allow most of your worries to be around the content of the main body of the report, because as markers, that's what we're looking for. You will lose a couple of marks if you've got the commas in the wrong place, but not as many as you would lose for having a poorly thought through essay, and certainly not as many as you would lose for plagiarism. Every university I've ever worked at or been an examiner for will treat plagiarism as an academic offence and will give you a mark of 0. Some institutions will fail the entire module, and some will, of course, ask you to leave the university. Plagiarism is cheating, plagiarism is lying, it is passing someone else's work off of your own, and to be honest with you, I can't imagine why anyone would want to do that. You know, we're here to be the best that we can. So, any questions, chuck them in the comments box down below us here. I'll try and answer them for you as best I can, but to be fair, every university has its own different approaches. 3 ways. A direct quote with the author's surname, a sentence of your own making, inspired by them with the author's surname at the end, and using the author's surname in your own sentence. Those are the 3 ways that we reference, and then as we've seen behind me here, author, year, title, location. That's it. That's all referencing is. It doesn't have to be hard. Thank you. Any ideas for videos, let me know, and I'll try and knock up a couple more. We've done some more somewhere else on this. You look around somewhere, they'll find them here around NPV and IRR and bits and pieces like that. As I said, let us know. I'll do whatever I can to help. Enjoy your studies.